Item number 5, this is PRE 15040, 11 Killingworth Turnpike, Mill Pond, Clinton LLC. This is a preliminary discussion with Mr. Resnikoff and Jon Hendel. Mr. Resnikoff, good evening. Mr. Hendel, good evening.
We'll sort of pick them up and spin them as we go.
That's fine.
There's a site plan that you sent over to see now. Though we've been here a couple of times, we sort of thought it would be nice just to formally introduce ourselves. Jon Hendel, Resnikoff. John's from Waterford, I'm from Essex. We actually both share the same high school, which is New London High School, they're years apart. Known each other for a long time. What we'd like to talk about just tonight, to just give you a very brief introduction to our vision, process, what we're going to be doing, and we'd like to come back and talk to you again, things like that, and just give you sort of a broad overview of what we're doing. I think you're all familiar with the property. The whole property is 38 acres. There's 25 usable acres. There's 13 acres of wetlands. This plan is the plan that was developed as a schematic plan only. And so this will not be the final plan we're presenting to you guys. Our vision is a mixed-use village. And that's very important to us. And a mixed-use village has been labeled all over the East Coast as new urbanism, if you're familiar with that term. It's mixing up retail, residential, in this case hotel, freestanding buildings. So it's not one big massive thing. And we have a lot of work to do to get this the way we want it. In order to do that, our process, we have about 6 months of due diligence to go through. During that due diligence time, we've hired professional land planners actually coming in from Pittsburgh. He does these all over the country. We've hired BL Associates, who some of you may know from Meriden, Connecticut. They're going to be doing all the civil, the wastewater treatment, the wetland. Well, Rich North will be doing the wetlands, but Max Welty will be doing the geotech. If you know any of these folks, they've probably been here before you. Some of the key things we have to work on is wastewater management, which is going to be going in this area, similar to the system that's over at Clinton Commons now. It's a DEEP process. It's very involved, very costly. It's the only way you can do it. We have public water here like this. What we'd like to do is get through the next 3 or 4 months and work on our site plan with our tenants, with our users, and then bring you back a preliminary schematic. It won't be the final, but we'd just like to show you the progress of what we're looking at, get feedback from the commission so that we're getting interaction with you guys, not that we're just bringing in the final product, here it is. So we'll be looking probably midsummer to come back and ask your opinion and just thoughts. Leasing, and I've said this several times, but I just want to repeat it. Our goal is to be leasing to a variety of kinds of tenants. And this is on the retail commercial side. We're looking for local tenants. We're looking for seasonal tenants, people who service the seasonal market, the tourist market, the highway visitor, the hotel obviously, and the restaurant user with different price points and different kinds of restaurants. That right now is not being serviced by Clinton Commons. They can't do it. It needs it to be done over here. So that's the goal of the mix. So we're talking to national tenants, we're talking to regional tenants, we're talking to local tenants. We have a whole leasing team that's doing that part of it. We anticipate applying formally sometime between October and January. Part of the reason for that is a simple one. We don't physically get delivery of the site until October 2016. So we're not trying to push this through and then just be sitting there sort of waiting around. So we want to take all the time we do have to do this right. And that's very important to us to do it right. We have to go through, as you all know, wetlands, the Wetlands Commission. We have to go through your commission, we have to go through DEP, we have to go through STC, we have to go through DOT. So multiple stops to get to a final place of just the land permit. That's not, we then have to come back and ask for building permits individually by building. Our goal is to build virtually everything you see at the same time, except probably some of the residential. Because we don't think we're going to phase this, we think it's one big site job. In particular, once we raise the school, which is a huge job undertaking, and we have to see what's underneath it. That's one of our few fears, is what's under there. It's been there for a long time. That's the idea, that it ties to the highway, it ties to Clinton Commons, it services the shoreline, it services the town. That's what we envision, and that's what we hope to do. And with that, I'll just leave it. If you have some general questions, we'll be happy to talk to you. Yeah, but architecturally, the small buildings, and what we'll do, why don't we show them that, and I'll show this one. I don't know if you all can see this. Architecturally, this is a
may look like it's not going to look like
2 to 3 story building. This is a typical building that's being done in the new urbanism. It's all first floor retail with second, third floor, or fourth floor residential. The apartments are market apartments. They're not workforce, they're not low income, they're strictly market apartments, market rate apartments. The mix is 99% 1 and 2 bedroom. There'll be a few studios, but nothing bigger than a 2 bedroom. One of the challenges on any kind of a site like this, and it's not just this site, but I face this in other sites, is how you mix your, actually, let's make it, we'll put this down for 1 second. How you mix your parking for your retail users and your residential users so they don't have conflict. They have 2 different needs. So parking is a very big issue. Like this, for example, John and I are not happy with these big fields. We're trying to, that's why we have a professional land planner who's coming in, who works with these kind of things to look at how do we, and I'll use the word hide the parking. We don't know if we'll have some subsurface parking yet. These are all the things we have to go through in the next 6 months. Lots of engineering, lots of questions, lots of design. So with that, I'll just leave it open if anybody's got any specific questions.
Mr. Resnikoff, you call them apartments. Am I to take from that they're going to be strictly rental units, they're not going to be condos?
We don't know yet. Right now, these buildings in here we envision as apartments. We had envisioned one building as a condo, but since this plan was done, we think we're not going to do that. And that will probably become another similar building to these with the first floor retail and apartments above. They may be condoed, they may be built, so they could be condoed. We just don't know yet.
But I think in general, they're going to be flat apartments above retail. So the second story, maybe third and fourth story combined. And then there may be some townhouses as clustered over here or some other place, depending on how the land planner looks at it. So I would say if we do townhouses, those will probably be condos, but the apartments will most likely be market.
If you think about any of the small New England villages around here, Essex, Chester, Clinton, I mean, even I can remember growing up, coming through Clinton, going to New London to New York. There were many buildings like this. First floor retail, and there were apartments upstairs. Very, very typical New England. Small town.
Size-wise, what are you contemplating for the 1, 2, and...
Right now, we're looking at an 850 square foot 1 bedroom and a 1,200 square foot 2 bedroom, but that's not
Cast in stone.
cast in stone. That's what we're looking at. We don't know yet. That's when the planners start to get involved. One of the things we do know, there's a lot of apartments, as you may know, being planned right now between New Haven and Salem, up and down the coast. A lot of it's being driven by the biotech that's going on in Brantford. Yale's expanding again. There's a lot of apartment demand. So we have to be very careful to find the right niche to fill. We don't want to do over 55, we're not doing workforce, we're not doing low income. So we want to do market. So we have to make sure we hit that right sweet spot. I know from a lot of apartment building in the Mid-Atlantic that building a slightly larger unit, even if it's a little bit more money, attracts that market rate person who wants that little more space. We also have to be conscious of, there's a lot of empty nesters now who are looking for a place they want to stay in. I mean, my wife and I are in the same position in Essex, but there's plenty of people like us in Clinton. You want to stay here, you may not want to live here full-time anymore, you don't want a giant place, but you want someplace you can call home if you're going to be in Florida for 3 months, 6 months, something like that. That would appeal this way too.
Do you have an idea of how many units, total units?
We have not determined that yet. We know what the code says, because you just passed the
Right.
RDZ. Our focus is on commercial. Our focus, not that the residential is the tail wagging the dog, but our focus is really on the retail, because the retail is going to determine things. So let me just give an example. I shouldn't use a national name. There's a national tenant that has expressed some interest here, that wants a 16,000 foot footprint. Now these are 10 and 12,000 foot. That may dictate a different size building, different size apartments above. We've had several major tenants who are in the 5, 7, 8,000 foot size. They may want a different look. Some of them want to be tucked together. In other words, they don't want these gaps in here. Because if you think, I'm going to use Chester Village, if you know Chester Village, it's like one solid sweep of stores. We just don't know yet. Those are the things we're going to be sitting and doing for the next 6 months. Literally. And a lot of it will be tenant driven.
Do you have some idea of how much of that's coming from outside? How much is coming from outside of Clinton that you're attracting, as compared to just moving businesses around?
I would guess local businesses will have, from Clinton itself, will have very few local businesses from Clinton moving here. I think that when I say local, I'm thinking from New Haven to New London, up towards Middletown. I'll give you an example. This because I happen to be there. I was at Katz's Deli in Woodbridge there. And I thought, gee, they'd be an interesting addition. That's what I call local. Okay. Some of you, not that, I don't want to use names, it's not fair. I mean, there's 50 local people like that we're talking to. But we'd like to keep that flavor.
One thing I've seen from this rendering is this is more of a facade that you'd see on a streetscape right along the edge here. Are you proposing these types of facades within the interior?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If you look, let me just turn it, I'll come back and say the same thing over there. All of these buildings are probably 3 or 4-sided finishes. One of the things we're struggling with, I'll use the word struggle, is we have this river. It's gorgeous. It's a nice view. Does the residential get it? Does the hotel get it? Do we set it up so restaurants are sitting over it? Is it a gathering place with walking paths? I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Rio complex off of 270 in Washington. In Gaithersburg. They built this beautiful artificial lake, this is real one, and they dotted it with office buildings and restaurants. And there's a beautiful walking path, and you can walk right by, you guys are all eating runs, walking down the little bridge and all that kind of stuff. So we're struggling, what's the best use of the riverfront? We don't know yet. These are, again, all part of the planning process. We'll probably end up with 50, 60, 70 different iterations of this thing.
I think one thing we were hoping to see is the relationship with Printing Crossing, giving people who go back and forth, not so much in their vehicles, but having shops, obviously, storefronts that allure people in, and then also outdoor seating that, large venues of outdoor seating that possibly shared space that could keep it moving and activity.
And we're very keenly aware of that, but I don't want to burst your bubble, but 90% of the people who go to Clinton Crossing who will come here will come by car. They won't walk.
It will be, it's challenging for them
the
getting
nature
back
of
in the
the
car, moving over there, the
Yeah.
parking issues. So if we could make it a more pleasant
Well,
environment
we plan to have certainly major crosswalks. We certainly plan to have a full sidewalk system, but unfortunately, the nature of the consumer, they're going to want to come over because they want to eat, but they're going to drive.
unless we get that train activity. I see a lot of people walking up High Street, they go to the outlets carrying their bags back and forth.
Yeah.
So these are city people are used to that type of dynamic.
Yeah.
You never know in the future, but That being said, we don't have a complete streets program for the town, so we haven't engaged with DOT to develop any type of plan for the road there that would make it more friendly for people to cross back.
Well, we know that we have a major crossing at the library. We know that we have a major crossing here that we're going to have, and significant crossing. So that we do anticipate that kind of movement. That we can force people not to drive over. Hard to do. I've seen people move their cars in the Cantor lot in the Westbrook Theater, 15 cars over to go in to go shopping. It's like, why did you do that? Any other questions?
You brought up the Rio Center in
Yes.
Gaithersburg. Is that the kind of retail tenants that you're kind of looking at? But you don't see, say, a hardware store there. You do see some clothing, you see a lot of restaurants, a lot of restaurants.
A lot of restaurants.
But there's a Target there too, even.
Well, Rio, its size and scale is so more massive.
Yes, right.
It's not, I don't use it as a comparison for that. I only use it as for the block.
But that's the kind of tenant, other than, say, the Target, that you would.
Yeah, the small retailer.
Okay.
I mean, Rio is very similar, if any of you have been to Blue Lac Square in West Hartford, it's that kind of new urbanism flavor, where there's a lot of dense, packed tenants.
That being said, have you considered the parking garage or anything like that? Is it just not?
No, we're actually looking at some service parking, not a parking garage per se, but as you all, I'm sure you all know, when you drive in from the 95 exit, there's a natural bowl. So we're thinking about, one of the things we challenge the engineers, when we bring out a deck, once we level the high school, that would actually create an on-grade entrance and create parking underneath, which would be phenomenal. But we don't know if it works yet. We just don't have enough information. But that, yeah,
Yeah, that's part of the due diligence,
That's
with
part of-
geotech and all that other
Yeah.
stuff, to see if it can make sense.
it may well be very advantageous.
Alan?
I have a concern about the walkability of the commercial, given, and the parking, how you handle it with this kind of basic site configuration, how you handle residential parking and access to commercial. This doesn't solve that problem at all, I don't
Well,
know.
actually, this would work, but it doesn't work the way we want it to. And that's why we're bringing this particular planner who's done a lot of these things. John and I were talking before, for example, this is a service road, but it doesn't have parking for the tenant, for the residential tenants behind it. But we don't want to give up waterfront for parking. So do we move these buildings forward, bring the main road behind it, and create parking? That we don't know yet. We just don't know. But we're asking the same questions.
But also with the traffic study, you gotta get the balance of the retail and residential customers that are coming at different times, so it's all part of.
Yeah, we may end up with subsurface parking for every tenant, for every residential tenant under these buildings. We just don't know.
Is the name of the planning firm, you alluded to Pittsburgh, is the name of the planning firm that you're using there confidential?
It is only because we haven't signed this contract and we're going to do it.
Okay.
I'd be happy to share it with you then.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? If not, Mr. Resnikoff, Mr. Hendel, we look forward to your next
Yeah,
presentation.
we'll be back. Still responsible.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'm glad you know Rio. I'm glad you know Rio.
I know it all about the
Yes, exactly.